Hello my dear students, I welcome you all to today's English class. Dear students, in the previous class we have discussed SGP 1 of How Poor We Are from class 7th English textbook. Let us recapitulate what we have discussed in the previous class. There was a rich man who lived in a palatial building on the top of a hill. His building had a beautiful look in moonlit nights. But his happiness doubled when he saw poor farmers toiling hard in their fields. But he had only sorrow. What was that? His only son. He was not at all interested in his father's richness and glamour. So students, today we will discuss SGP 2 of How Poor We Are. So let's begin. One day, the rich man took his son to the poor people living in small huts down the hills. The rich man, one day, what he did? He took his son. Where? To the poor people. And where did the poor people live? The poor people living in small huts. Okay, small houses down the hills. We know the rich man lived in the top of the hill, but the poor people, they lived down the hills. He had in his mind to show his son how rich he was in contrast to the poor farmers. He thought this would work like medicine for his son's sadness. Here he refers to the rich man. He had in his mind to show his son, he wanted to show his son how rich he was. Okay, in contrast to means in comparison to the poor farmers living down the hill, how rich they were. He thought, the rich man thought, this would work like medicine for his son's sadness. In the previous class we discussed his son used to sit alone looking down the hill. He was not interested in the money, in the richness, in the glamour of his father. So his father thought of taking his son to show how rich they were. When his son would see these poor people living in small huts, his sadness would disappear. He would realize how privileged he was in contrast to those poor farmers. When his son would see these poor people living in small huts, his sadness would disappear. The rich man, the father, he thought that his son's sadness would disappear by looking at the poor people. He would realize how privileged means advantage. What advantage they had for being rich. His son would realize, the father thought. in contrast to those poor farmers, in comparison to those poor farmers, how much advantage they had, his son would realize. In a beautiful car, he took him all around. He made him see the poor farmers living in wretched condition. In a beautiful car, the rich man, he took his son all around those poor farmers living down the hill, and he made him see, he made his son see the poor farmers living in wretched condition, miserable condition. The condition of the poor farmers is very miserable, very wretched. They don't have enough things to meet their livelihood. So, the father made his son see all these things, how the poor people lived in miserable condition. For the first time, his son, who lived like a prisoner in a big house, got the chance to see the outside world. Throughout the tour, his father was telling how these poor people were living in great difficulty. For the first time, his son came out of that palatial building. He lived like a prisoner. It was not a prison, but the house was so big that the son felt like a prisoner. He could not go out. He could not make friends. And when he came out, he got a chance. The boy got a chance to see the outside world. The outside world, rivers, trees, fields. For the first time, that boy came to see all these things. Throughout the tour, throughout means from the beginning to the end, his father was telling. Okay, what did he tell? How these poor people were living in great difficulty. What difficulty the poor people had, his father was telling throughout the tour. On his way back, very satisfied, he asked his son, "Did you see how poor the farmers are? What did you learn from this?" On his way back, when they returned, very satisfied, the father was very satisfied, the rich man was very satisfied, and he asked his son, "Did you see how the poor farmers were living? What did you learn from this?" The father asked his son, "What did you learn from this?" His son sadly replied, "We have one dog, they have 4. We have one pool, but they have rivers." When the father asked, "What did you learn?" the son replied, "We have one dog, bulldog, but they have 4. That is street dogs. Okay, and we have one pool, swimming pool. Rich people use swimming pool. but they have rivers. Rivers. So the poor people live with nature, whereas the rich people live confined within the walls. We have artificial lamps, but they have the moon and stars. We buy food, they grow theirs. The son replied, we have artificial lamps. The rich people have artificial lamps, but the poor people have the moon and stars. The poor people live under the moon and the stars. Similarly, food. Rich people buy food from vegetable store, but poor people, they grow food. They grow their own food and eat them. We have walls to protect us. They have friends. We have encyclopedias. They have Bibles. The son said again, we have walls, boundary walls to protect us. They have friends, but the poor people, they have friends. They live together. We have encyclopedias. Encyclopedia is a set of books which contain comprehensive knowledge about everything. But they have Bibles. The religious book, Bible, it contains everything, every knowledge in this world. So, in a way, the poor people live more happily. Thank Dad for showing me how poor we are. Really, I want to live with them there. The son replied, thank Dad for showing me how poor we are. The son realized that it is actually they who are poor. The rich people who have lots of money, but they live like a poor people. They have money and everything, but they do not have the happiness that the poor people have. Really, I want to live with them there. The son wanted to live with the poor people down the hill. The son taught his father the lesson of who is actually rich, who is actually poor. The rich people have money, but they don't have happiness. The poor people, they don't have money, but they live very happily, isn't it? Now students, we will discuss the comprehension question answers. Question number 1. Where did the rich man take his son one day? One day, the rich man took his son to the village where poor people lived. Question number 2. What did he have in his mind? He had in his mind to show his son how rich they were in contrast to the poor farmers. Question number 3. What did the rich man think of this? The rich man thought this would work like a medicine to remove his son's sadness. 4. When would the son's sadness disappear? The son's sadness would disappear when he would see the poor people living in miserable condition. Next question 5. What would he realize? He would realize how privileged they were in contrast to the poor farmers. 6. What did he make his son see? He made his son see the poor farmers living in wretched condition. 7. How did the son live in a big house? The son lived like a prisoner in the big house. 8. What was his father telling him all the time? His father was telling him how the poor people were living in great difficulty. Next question 9. Was the father happy on his way back? Which word tells you so? Yes, the father was happy on his way back. The word satisfied tells that. 10. Who are richer in having pools? The poor farmers or the rich men? How? The poor farmers are richer because the rich man has one pool, but they have rivers. 11. What look better? The artificial lamps or the stars? Why? The stars look better because they are not artificial. Question number 12. Who buy food? The rich buy food. 13. Who grow their own food? The poor grow their own food. 14. What does the rich man have to protect him and his family? The rich man have walls to protect him and his family. 15. Who do the poor farmers have to protect them? The poor farmers have friends to protect them. 16. Friends or walls? Which of these two can give someone real protection? Friends can give real protection, not the walls, because friends are faithful. 17. What was the feeling of the son? The son felt that they were poor. 18. What did he want to do? He wanted to live with them. 19. The father and the son looked at things in different ways. In other words, their attitude to life is different. Whose attitude or way of looking at things is better? The son's attitude to life is better than the father. So students, what we have learnt in today's class? We have read the text and comprehended it. So this is all for today's class. Thank you students. Bye bye.